Good morning, everybody. I'm a little bit late posting this. I wanted to wait. Last week's video, I was sort of waiting until I had finished going through your discussion forums. I wanted to have a quick look. A few of you had emailed me, and so I got partway through the week before, but I had a couple left to finish last week, and so I just wanted to finish going over those and over the quizzes so that I could give you a little update. So this week's video is a little bit late, and I apologize for that. First on the list, I did go through the discussion forums, and some of you, your marks are different than they were, so just so that you know. And just a word on what that looks like, kind of, I'm really hoping in those discussion forums for this to look like a conversation. And so your posts need to be thoughtful, and I'm not suggesting that you weren't. I'm just trying to clarify a little bit here so that everybody's on the same page and understands what it is that I sort of was looking for. And that means not posting sort of just the minimum that you think you need to say, right? Make it thoughtful. And lots of you did a great job of that. You know, most of the posts that I read were really great, I thought. You did a great job talking about, you know, what your ecological footprint looked like and why you were surprised or were not surprised and what you thought you could do differently or where there was room for improvements. And so, you know, quite a good job. What I would say is that some of you, in terms of responding to your classmates, could step it up. This is sort of meant to foster interaction and, you know, a conversation that we don't get to have, dialogue that we don't get to have because we're not inside of a classroom, right? So I want you to be responding thoughtfully to each other. Think about what your classmates have said and you know, respond as though you were in real life and you were actually listening to somebody talk and you were sitting right in front of them. You know, you want to reflect back that you hear what they're saying and they've, you know, thought about what they've said, and this is your response, right? So that's sort of the general idea, just to clarify. But do go and have a look. I've changed some marks, like I said, and I realize you've just finished the second one. So with any luck, you know, you watch this video and feel like you know, maybe have stepped it up a little on the second one. Collectively, all three of them really are worth only 15%, and they are just, I mean, it's meant to foster conversation with your classmates, like I said. So it's not like this is a tremendous, you know, blow if you happen to not do as well on one form or the other, because they're only worth 5%. But you do need to be mindful in your response, right? And if you don't respond to one of your classmates, like, that's going to cost you some marks. It's a two-part deal. So there's that. In terms of the quizzes, when I was selecting questions, we have a question bank, and it's sort of all built already into the framework of the class that's online. And so I accidentally selected the question about Vandana Shiva. My apologies, it was totally just a mistake on my part when I was, you know, going through the list and deciding this one, that one, this one, that one. So I apologize for that. All that I did was scratch that question, so nobody was penalized for it. Your mark on your quiz is just your mark on your quiz. That's it. That's all. There's no issue with the marks. Nobody, but I just wanted you to know nobody was penalized. I took it out altogether, and you received credit on the rest of the quiz for what you got right. So that's that. This last week's section that you just sort of finished the lecture and stuff had to do with activism. And there are lots of different ways to be active. I think sometimes when we think about activism, environmental activism, you know, we get caught up, we think about people marching and protesting, and all of those things I think are necessary aspects of activism, and, you know, really can be a really effective way to create change. Certainly it's not the only way. And there are small choices, what seem like small choices, I think that all of us can make individually, particularly where the environment is concerned, in our everyday lives, to change, you know, what our impact on the environment is. And if collectively we're all doing those things, it's that drop in the bucket theory, right? So like drop, 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 but the ocean is made of drops. And so if every one of us wasn't always saying, like, what about somebody else? So not to make this political, but the perfect example of that attitude is this carbon tax business, right? Lots of Canadians are saying, you know, but like Canada, we're not the biggest, you know, polluters or emitters, and so why should we have to? There are lots of countries that do way worse than us, and that might be true. But in my mind, it's not the point. The point is, when you have the ability to do something and to contribute to positive change, my mind as a global citizen is that we should do so. Just because other countries have higher rates of violence against women than we do, doesn't mean we shouldn't do anything about it. Just because other countries pollute more doesn't mean that we can just go ahead and keep polluting and doing whatever we want until we catch up. And at that point, maybe then we need to think about what we're doing. I think that's kind of backward logic. And so whether I'm teaching a 100 class, where I'm talking about all kinds of social justice issues, or a class like this where we're focused on something, quite specific, I encourage my students to think about it in terms of just who are you, and how are you able to take an active role in the world that you live in and leave it a little bit better than you found it. And personal activism around the environment, I think, is a really great place to start. So, for me, being a vegetarian means that I make a political and environmental choice every single day. I thought it was interesting, lots of the things that you had to say when you were talking about how you could become a more active participant in environmental activism when you were talking about your ecological footprint. I think lots of people probably didn't think about it that way. My 4-year-old knows that we don't leave the tap on when we brush our teeth, because water is not a renewable resource. It is finite. We are in a water crisis already, and that's not what we do. We don't play with the water running all the time. We don't, and you know what, maybe that makes me like a little bit of a killjoy and like not that fun, but I want him to understand, right? Water is precious, and it's tied to life, and so we can't afford to just run it down the sink just because we want to, or because we think it's fun, because some other country is doing a worse job of managing their water supply. We do what we can in our home. And the reason I brought up your discussion forums is because I thought a lot of you mentioned some really good things. None of us is going to nail it 100% of the time. And that, framework, I think, sets everyone up for failure if that's the expectation, that to be an activist, you have to be covering all of the bases. You can't. You can't. There's no way. I also don't take public transportation. I do a lot of other things, but I don't do that. I live in a house that is not energy efficient. It was built in 1920, and so it's just not. And in the wintertime, that does mean that when I'm at home, the temperature drops automatically. I have it set up so it goes off when we leave the house. But at night when we get home, after 5 o'clock or whatever, after 6 o'clock, the heat is turned up a little bit. It's chilly in here. The same being said, in summertime, I have air conditioning and I don't use it because my house is old and it actually doesn't get hot. It stays quite cool in the summertime, so I don't really need to sweat it. That was like a funny pun that I made just there. Did you catch that? The idea and the conversation around being an activist and how to engage environmental activism and what does that actually look like, I think it's the same as any kind of social justice activism. Sorry. You do what you can. And if that means, if one of those things happens to be that you clean at your house with vinegar instead of chemicals, good for you. You're helping to sort of stave off some of that toxic contamination of our water supply. If you happen to not be a toilet flusher, good for you. It's a profound waste of water to flush the toilet every time, every single time somebody goes. We don't do that in my house either. I mean, people think it's weird, but there it is, right? There's lots of, like I said, small things. We do laundry once a week, and they're like decent-sized loads because I'm not all about sorting colors, and I'm not all about, right? Like unless I have a full load, we're just not doing laundry. We also only wash in cold water. Better for your clothes, better for the environment. So there are lots of choices that you can make. It's possible to compost. We don't have it right now, but I am seriously considering it. Even if you live in an apartment, lots of people compost in really small spaces. And it's a great way to get rid of waste, rather than always throwing things in the garbage. But we're really mindful about garbage at my house also. We recycle as much as possible. The city provides bins, and they pick them up. So there's no reason not to. It's just that easy. The bin is in my back alley. I fill my stuff up, I take it out, and every 2 weeks it gets picked up. It's, that's, to not recycle when we have that available to us is crazy. And again, if we were all doing that, that's a profound impact that we could be having. I think the other thing that we often forget about, is holding our governments responsible and petitioning them and really pressuring them to take care of our environment and take care of our natural resources and to protect the environment. And lots of you mentioned, sort of things that need to be considered and ways to maybe do that when you were talking about the storage, nuclear waste storage. So I think, sometimes we can talk about things in isolation and not really realize that they're connected, but in fact they are connected, and your voice is important, and that's part of being an activist, is really understanding that there is room for you to contribute, and that contribution can be meaningful. And so I think, if you take nothing else from this sort of section of looking at, having looked at what your ecological footprint looked like, and now sort of looking and tying in the environmental activism part of it, or activism part of it, is that just who you are and the way you choose to operate, those are choices. Those can be activist choices, and they can have an impact. And so, I hope you think about that as we continue to move through the rest of the course. You had a book review due, I think, yesterday. Some of you have emailed me to let me know that you need an extra day or two, and that's okay. Just be in touch with me if, in fact, that's the case. Some of you have not participated in forums. That's costing you marks, right? So make sure that you're really clear and go over the syllabus and the outline again, and have a look at when things are due and what the expectations are, so that it's not the end of the semester and you find yourself having lost, 15% for not doing this or 10% for not doing that. Stay on top of your stuff. Contact me if you're having trouble. It's no problem. But please, make sure that you're clear about when things are due and what is required of you. If you have questions, get in touch with me. I'm going to send you all a quick email right now. Let you know that this video is up and posted under week 7, I think. And then, in a couple of days, I'll leave the week 8 up for now, and then post my own version of that video in a day or two. So take care. I hope you've had a good week, and I will see you soon. Bye.